In some videos, I'm able to predict the top and it looks really cool. And it's like, man, how did he know that was going to happen? And then other times this happens. All right. So I am anticipating this thing being rejected. So I go ahead and I buy a put at the top. All right. Right when I'm like, okay, this is a perfect location to buy a put. I buy a put. I enter the trade, because I believe that we're coming back down to the moving averages, and then we continue to the upside. Now, that is only really a problem when you do not size your positions appropriately. And this is something that I am learning is really the difference between me winning consistently and me having those huge fluctuations where I have days where I win a lot, days where I lose a lot, and then over the long period of time, the losses are way bigger than the wins. So what we need to focus on is position size, and predicting tops is where I learned that lesson. Because what happens is, if you look now, I have 3 contracts on this particular play. So I was wrong the first time I entered, but because I kept my position size small, I had enough buying power to, as I call, doctor this position. Because I am convicted that we are going to go back down towards 682.21. But it's not a matter of which way, it's a matter of when. And this is another reason why trading the SPY is great. But I have found that for me, the sweet spot is about 3 DTE, 3 days till expiration. 3 days till expiration slows down the theta, so that if I'm wrong or if a play pulls back, it doesn't eat away at my value. Now, it's still, you still never recover with those short-term options. You never really recover. So if you were up $50 at this white line, and then we get a major pullback back up towards the highs, once we come back down to this white line, you won't be up $50. You might be up $20. If you add contracts, dollar cost average in, then in that case, you may be back up. But it's all about maintaining a certain level of buying power for you to be defensive in these short dated plays. Because again, where I entered at, now I am down $14 on 3 contracts. However, instead of me waiting for me to come back in green, I could have just purchased contracts to continue with the flow, to go with the flow and continue up. All right, so it's better over the long haul to buy pullbacks than it is to predict the top. So if you look right here, I could have waited for the pullback, bought a call, and continued to the upside instead of me buying puts, and now I'm just now getting into profit. And now I'm in profit, but I have 3 contracts with a very small profit, and we're still not that we're not trending down. So the moving averages are pointed up. I'm still betting on a move to the downside, and that's why I'm running into a lot of resistance, or a lot of support, should I say. It's a lot of green happening. Even though I'm fighting for a move down, you see another green push towards the top, because I am going against the trend. I am counter trend trading. I need to work and practice on going with the flow. And it's not that I shouldn't do it. I just want to be clear. All of the strategies that I employ, they work sometimes and they don't work sometimes. So the art of it all, from what I believe from my experience, is in knowing when to deploy which strategy. All right, so you got to know when to deploy which strategy. You can't always go with the flow, because sometimes you'll be entering at a top. But as you can see, I'm typically not that far off. I'm normally within the range, and that's why having enough buying power to add to your position within range isn't a bad idea, but you just have to understand what comes along with that. So sometimes I feel like there's these black and white rules in trading where you should do this and you shouldn't do that. But you do have to have a level of flexibility within your strategy and within your playbook. And it's up to you to know when, because sometimes you could run a play that's a great play, but the timing was off. It might not have worked with this particular defense, or it might not have worked in this particular market. So you have to understand those things. So as you can see, we are moving back towards the 200 period moving average, which is the red line at 680.86. All right, so that's the ultimate target. But you cannot afford to always ride that out with short dated expirations. Because if it takes 2 more hours to go from where it is now to the red line, by the time I get there, I might only be up $4 in profit, and I could have just took the profit here instead of waiting another 2 hours. So scalping is a matter of not being greedy. In fact, scalping is about seeing profit and taking profit. So there is a time and place for that. So 2 things that I really want you to understand is that you have to take profit when you see profit. You also don't want to get into the habit of predicting tops when you can buy pullbacks. And then the third thing is that if you are going to play that game of predicting tops, you need to have additional buying power to deploy in case you need to dollar cost average into a better position. So there are circumstances where it's best to dollar cost average your winners and let your losers rock. Again, I could have very easily cut that play and then waited and then entered again. And if that was still wrong, cut that play and waited and then entered again. Or I could have dollar cost average into those positions because I was convicted. So far, this has been serving me. I did have one trade that really went against me. I think I recently posted that one. I was down $100 on 2 contracts. So that is something to consider. It doesn't always work out in your favor, but it is a probabilities game and a numbers game. Okay, so again, look, the closer we get to certain moving averages, we're going to get a bounce. So I always say the 21 period moving average is going to give me something. The 50 period moving average is going to give me something. So when we're coming down into those averages, I'm expecting or anticipating pullbacks to happen right then and there. But we got to be able to differentiate between a pullback and a reversal, because every pullback isn't a reversal. All right. So that's the thing. Like right here, that big green candle, for some, they would have dived in that like, oh, that's a reversal. We going back up. But it was so powerful and dramatic that in fact, it looked to be more of a pullback. And I was able to get out of one of my 3 contracts the last time we were in green. All right. And again, as you can see, we're moving down. We're getting closer and closer to this 50 period moving average, but the P&L isn't changing that much. And why isn't it changing that much? Because we just sat through a major move. But remember, we've been doctoring the play up this whole time. Adding contracts, getting another pullback, adding more contracts. So that's why it's very important to kind of go with the flow and be prepared to scalp. And once you get confident and comfortable with understanding your particular stock, the direction that it took, not the direction, but the behavior, then you can start to time your entries and exits according to what you know. All right, so this is a later trade. This was 11:30, but we really been in this trade for about an hour, doctoring it up. So again, you got to consider that. I'm big on understanding that I want to spend the least amount of time and make the most amount of money. I don't want to sit in the market from 9:30 to 3:30 to make $50. I could have went and worked somewhere for all of that. I could have did something else, try to sell a product. But if I can jump in and out consistently, 20 minutes, you know, making $100, then eventually scaling my account to that 20 minutes, making me $400, then now we're talking about living a quality life with a better advantage. All right. So remember, don't pick tops if you don't have the buying power, the doctor to play. Focus on buying pullbacks and stay convicted. Peace and love. Subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and leave a like. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.